Hello everyone. This webinar today is about HD high definition megapixel surveillance over coax. So we're going to go over today about why do we use megapixel surveillance, the arguments against HD surveillance, the delivery methods of video, pros of high definition over coax, the cons of using IP-based surveillance, and application types. The benefits of going HD is that composite analog systems video resolution is limited to 640 by 480. So basically that's the limits of using composite video. Even 960H video, whatever marketing terms they use, is still 960 by 480. Your vertical resolution is still limited to 480 TV lines. Using megapixel surveillance, a typical 2 megapixel camera is 1920 by 1080, full 1080p high def. This is almost 7 times the resolution of analog video. Here's a typical comparison with the megapixel camera versus an analog camera. On the top, this is just a 1 megapixel camera, and you can between the two cameras, especially when you're going up to 2 megapixels. So you can see the bottom part. On the left, you won't be able to see much of a difference, but on your right, when it's digitally zoomed in, you would see a big difference. These are pictures from a regular analog camera. As you can see, identification is clearly almost impossible. Whether it be a grocery store, a liquor store, or at most cases a casino where identification is very critical. Here's a sample of a 2 megapixel camera. As you can see, the picture quality is drastically improved. You can clearly identify the suits and what kind of cards they are. When you're going into megapixel, the other thing that gets improved is you get a greater field of view. While going to from analog, as you can see, you lose a field of view, plus you get a lower quality picture compared to the picture on the left. You'll see a 2 megapixel camera. You can get a wider field of view and a higher resolution. So there are arguments against going high def. One of them is that it requires too much hard drive space for storage, which is partially true because the resolution of going to 1080p is 7 times the resolution. So theoretically, it would require 7 times the hard drive space. But that is not the case anymore. Maybe back 5 years ago, that was a case where they used MPEG-4 for storage. But currently, today, with H.264, especially using high profile compared to baseline, it's even more compressed than ever. So like you delivers more quality at a fraction of the storage capacity. Another thing is that hard drive prices have exponentially declined over the last 5 years. So what a hard drive that costs today is much lower. And then there's also the ability to just do motion detection recording only. So the arguments against hard drive are not valid in today's world anymore because of the higher compression and the lower hard drive prices. Another argument of going high def is that it's too difficult to install, and you need to be in the IT network knowledge to install megapixel camera. That may be the case a couple years ago when the only way to get megapixel was going IP. But nowadays, there's a new method of HD surveillance, which is HD-SDI or HDcctv. It is a high definition over coax. So what it does is the camera sends uncompressed signals to the DVR, and the DVR will compress it there. It also gives you the ability to have real-time live views, no latency compared to IP cameras. So there's no networking knowledge needed. So you can avoid the headaches of using switches and the messy, so electricians or security install integrators would be able to deliver megapixel surveillance nowadays. So it uses the familiar RG59 copper core, copper braid coax, and with the BNC connectors that everyone's familiar with. It's plug and play, and you plug it in, it works. You don't have to assign IP addresses to the cameras. And another good thing about it is you can instantly do retrofit upgrades. Unlike going IP cameras, you would have to go with costly Ethernet over coax converters. Unlike IP, you don't have to worry about the complexity in the network design. So you don't have to make sure your network switches can handle all the data going back and forth. Another thing with IP is the firmware has to be compatible with the NVR software. If the manufacturer updates the firmware in any way for the cameras or updates the VMS software, it can break compatibility and you won't be able to connect anymore. Unlike HD-SDI, you plug it in, it works. No need to be worried about firmware upgrades. The only part you will have to worry about firmware upgrades is in the DVR. Even if you did that, it would not break compatibility. And you don't have to worry about the PoE switches, especially if you're going to a higher count network where traffic is, where you need more bandwidth and switching capacity. It can be very costly. A 16-port managed switch can be upwards of $300 to $400, depending on how good it is that you would need. The other part of it is that if the switch goes down or the network goes down, you would not get any recording on your NVR. Unlike if your network goes down on the HD-SDI, HD of a coax, you would still be recording. Another way people say is using the HD DVRs over coax DVR is not scalable. It is indeed scalable. Using the central management software, you can combine multiple DVRs to create a bigger system. So even though the DVRs are limited to 8 or 16 channels, it can be combined with another DVR to provide more channels. So that way you can scale up to however many you want. The cost of both of the systems are usually equal or cheaper on the HD-SDI side. IP cameras are more expensive and require expensive switches. The reason why IP cameras are more expensive is that each IP camera encodes and requires the conversion inside the camera, while the HD over coax DVRs are done in the DVR, so the cost is in the DVRs, unlike in the cameras. The HD-SDI DVRs are slightly more expensive. However, if the NVR is required to do a live client view, the NVR side will get more expensive. So in the end, the cost between the HD over coax system and IP systems are about equal, with the HD-SDI side having a slight advantage on that area. It's cheaper because it's not required to have those expensive switches, and the processing is done in the DVRs instead of in the cameras. So there's solutions for every market and customer. Here we have our two HD DVRs. We have the 4-channel HD DVR and the 8-channel HD DVR. And we have our indoor fixed dome, and we also have a varifocal IR bullet. So some of the HD-SDI DVR features is that it will record as a full 1080p 1920 by 1080 high-def resolution picture. It provides real-time 30 frames per second recording on all channels, unlike some of the other HD DVRs on the market, which only gives you like 3 to 7 frames per second. This gives you, our DVRs will give you a full 30 frames per second on all channels. You know, the other argument for going HD, that when you're doing remote views, that is not able to handle the bandwidth because you're pulling all high-def streams in it. But our DVRs do dual streaming for bandwidth considerations. What dual streaming is that it'll transcode into a smaller stream, so it's able to send over the bandwidth constrained network. So that way, when you're viewing more than one camera, the streams are lowered to 360 by 240 until you do a full screen on one of the cameras, and it'll pull through a full 1080p picture. So it is supported on Windows, Mac, and mobile devices like Android and iPhones and iPads and Android tablets. And it's perfect for all applications, especially residential, banks, retail environments, and also casinos. So that way, everything is so right now, if there's any questions, if not, then we're going to do a little demo on how the HD DVRs work. So I'm going to bring up a DVR right now. So here's our high-def recorder. What you see here is here's the dual streaming I was talking about, where when there's multiple screens, it'll stream it in low quality. Unless you're on site or something, you can have all of them in high quality at the same time. And when the single screen gets selected, it bumps it up to high quality. So when you double click on it, it'll convert it over to a higher quality stream. And when you click on it, it'll convert it back to a low quality stream. And here we have a time search. It'll play it back in full HD, 1080p. And you can digitally zoom in on certain areas. So basically, that's how our HD DVRs work. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you all for coming today. If you have any other questions, just feel free to contact me in my email, and then I'll answer any other questions that you may have. Hi, Curtis. You have a question? I mean, Scott? So Scott Curtis is asking if he can use his existing cameras and these in his existing system. We do have hybrid units where you can use 8 channels analog, and you can add 2 channels high def. So you can use your keep your existing cameras as well as adding high def cameras to your existing system. So now Scott's asking if he needs to replace the DVR. Yes, you can replace the DVR, or you can just add on like a 4-channel and use the CMS software to combine the 2 DVRs. This will combine with our DVR line, so you can seamlessly use both DVRs at the same time while having the new one to be HD. So yeah, just feel free to call me or send me an email if you have any other questions regarding the system. And if you need a copy of this or a video of this webinar, then just let me know. Thank you, everyone, for coming today.